Hey, this is Earl of FrunkPuppy. Have a kind of special FrunkPuppy addendum, if you will, to hot topic throughout the community, and brought on special guest Trevor, who is a Tesla enthusiast. He's probably, at least in my circle, most famously known for really advocating for Wilson to have more of a say in the FrunkPuppy universe. So, Trevor, thanks for joining me.
Thanks for having me. I guess, I'm a little brother, and my brother got all the attention. So, I think I feel connected to Wilson in that way. Norman gets all the attention. So, yeah, I want to bring him to the forefront. I was the smarter brother, so I think Wilson might be the smarter pup.
I hate to jump right into the race thing, but I noticed you advocate for the white dog and the multicolored brown dog. You're not as
Yeah, I didn't even notice that.
You don't see dog color? Is that your policy?
Yeah, I'm colorblind like pups.
But clearly through the protests, it extends everywhere, and it has extended into the Tesla community. And one of the things that I have used Twitter for is an escape from reality, to talk about dogs and frunks of electric cars, raise awareness for electric cars. But there was kind of no avoiding this one, and you saw a lot of accounts posting various positive and negative things. What I chose to do with my account is not post anything, at least on that Tuesday, about FrunkPuppy or EVs, and just focus in on useful resources for anti-racism resources and other books and things that I've read that I thought might be useful to share. You can imagine that was met with mixed feelings. I can post a meme of Norman doing something stupid and get 600 likes, but I posted some of those resources and sadly got like 10 likes and about 20 comments. So, but during that time, you had reached out to me. We had a little DM back and forth, and decided it might be useful to have you on to talk about this topic. So I'm going to hand it over to you. I know you had a story to share, but thanks again for coming on, and go ahead.
So once again, thanks for doing that. It was something that I recognized immediately when I woke up that morning, and I appreciate it. I tried to add some insight in the comments, and hopefully this story, it's the same goal, is to add some insight, to let you know, this is something that actually happened to me 5 years ago. So as I tell the story, try to put yourself in my shoes and see how you'd react. I'll probably stop and ask as well, all right, how do you think you'd react then? So my wife and I, we had a small business at the time. We had a cupcake shop. I've shared before, we were on Cupcake Wars. But we had to move some money from my bank to the business bank account. So I was having my wife meet me at the bank, and she was going to take it to the other bank that we had the business account with. I work from home full time. So this changed because of the pandemic's been nothing for me. I've been home for 10 years. And I had a 15-minute window where I had my work break to get to the bank and get the transaction taken care of. So when I leave my neighborhood, I have to make a left onto one of the cross streets outside of my neighborhood. And as I'm making the left, there's a car coming in the lane that I have to get to. So as he passes, I start to pull out. So he thinks I'm going to hit him, but physics, my car can't be in two places at once. I know I'm not going to hit him, but yeah, I was pulling out as he was passing. So he didn't appreciate that. So I'm like, whatever, it's not a big deal. And the passenger in the car, she turns around and she's flipping me off through the back window, and he's waving out the window. And at that point, I'm like, all right, I have a plan, I have a mission, don't want to make this worse, just whatever, just go on with your day. So I don't do anything to escalate. I just continue on to the bank. So they're in front of me. Through the first light, they stay in front of me, and then I get to a light that I have to make a left turn at. So when I go to make the left turn, they cut me off and they turn in front of me. And at the next light, I have to make a right turn, and they do the same thing. So they get over into the right lane, cut me off, and turn in front of me. So I'm on the street that the bank is on, and I have to make a left at a light that's coming up. So I'm like, all right, I will let them go through the light, and then I'll get into the left lane. So, they can't cut me off again. So they went through the light. I get in the left lane to make the left, and they like slam on the brakes, and they turn into a parking lot directly into the bank. So the street that I turn on, I'd have to make a right to the bank, and the police station, if I continued going straight on that street, it was to the police station. I'm like, all right, should I go to the police station? I'm like, no, go to the bank. Like, your mission's at the bank, have security cameras. Like, what are they really going to do? So I park, I get out my car, start walking towards the bank, and then they like whip around the front of the bank, park next to the curb, and then the guy that was driving jumps out. So he starts like walking towards me, and he's like screaming at me like, you almost hit me, like I could have had my kid in the car, like, what the hell's wrong with you, like, whatever. So I'm like, I have my mission, I'm going to the bank. So I turn towards the bank, and he pushes me in the back, and he says, you effing N, don't just walk away from me.
Wow.
So like, everything kind of slows down. It feels like that moment was forever, but it wasn't forever. And that's when my first major decision. So like, what would you do in that situation? So someone just pushed you in the back and called you a racial slur.
I guess it depends on my mood at the time. I might say something back. It depends how much it's escalating, I guess. I'd probably start walking away, I guess.
So that's what I did. Like, I walked into the bank. And at the time, it was like the Trayvon Martin trial was like fresh. So, like I'm thinking, if I turn around and hit this guy, like best case scenario, he beats me up. Like worst case scenario, I get the best of him. He thinks I'm going to kill him. And, like they shoot me dead. Like, and do you think they admit to the cops that he pushed me and, called me a racial slur? Like, no, I don't think I'd get that benefit of the doubt.
And this is all because of a traffic accident that didn't happen.
Right. There was no traffic accident. Right.
Like, nothing had occurred.
Right.
They got a little shaken up.
Yeah.
They thought maybe there could have been an accident.
Right.
This is what this is about. Okay.
Yeah. So then I walk into the bank, and he follows me into the bank. And so he walks into the bank behind me screaming, yelling at me. So one of the ladies that works there, she's like, both you guys stop and get out. So I do this, like I haven't done anything. I haven't said anything.
You're just walking and getting yelled at.
Right. So she processed the information. She processed everything that she took in, and she processed it properly. So she might have recognized me as a customer. But when she said that, he pushed me again and said, this effing N almost hit me.
This is in the bank?
Inside the bank. So yeah, she takes all this information, processes it, and she points at him. She says, you leave now. I'm calling 911.
Okay.
So he's like, great. I already called him. And he walks out the bank. So I'm like, all right. So I go to the teller, process my transaction, and the teller's asking me what happened. So I tell her what happened. And she recommends that, I press charges. The guy knows what neighborhood I came out of, so you can file a restraining order. I was like, yeah, that's probably a good idea. So my wife comes in and she's like, cops are outside. And I was like, yeah, they're probably waiting for me. She's like, why are they waiting for you? So I tell her what happened. So we finish the transaction. I go to leave. And when I go to leave, the police officer is like, is that your car? And I'm like, yes, that's my car. And she asked for my driver's license and, like the vehicle registration. So I give it to her. She takes it back to her car. She runs it or whatever. She comes and gives it back to me, and she asked me what happened. So I told her what happened, and she's like, oh, that's not what he told me. Well, yeah, I wouldn't assume that's what he told you. And she's like, okay, well, you're free to go. And I was like, well, I'd like to press charges and see if I could, possibly get a restraining order. And she was like, well, do you know his name? I'm like, no. Like, did you speak with him?
Don't you know his name?
Right. Like, she's like, yeah, but he said he had to go. I'm like, well, I have to go. Like, I didn't know it was that easy. I could have just said I had to go, but you asked for my driver's license. You didn't do that to him as well?
He had to go? Okay.
No. Yeah, he had to go. So, yeah, he told me what happened and I let him go. I was like, okay. I'm like, he said he called 911 as well. Like, did you get the name from when they called? No, it was just like an anonymous call to 911. All right. Well, when I was in the bank, they told me they got his plate number. So can you get the plate number and see if you can find out who he is from that? She's like, okay. So she goes in the bank, gets the plate number, goes to a car, and she comes back and she's like, they were in a white whatever type of car. And I was like, yeah, like you did speak to him, right? She's like, yeah. I'm like, why? She's like, well, that plate came back for a red blah, blah, blah type of car. So they have stolen plates. Yes. So like at that point, just like everything in me just like left. Like you detained me. I was just assaulted and you let the criminal go. Like he had stolen plates on his car and you let him go. And like I have no recourse. Like there's nothing I can do now. And like she like I didn't say that, but like that's what my face said, and I know she picked up on it. And she's just like I'm sorry, like thanks. So yeah, there's individual racism, like systematic racism. Like she knew, like it was all clear. Like this guy called in, black guys harassing him. Like yeah, like everything makes sense. Everything checks out. But like no, that's not what happened. And if you would have just treated us fairly, you would have had enough information to or yeah, just run his plates like you ran my plates.
Yeah.
And white privilege, for someone to call the cops on someone else and you know that you have stolen plates on your car.
That's what I was thinking.
Like the audacity of that, to know, to be that confident that you can get, like you can just drop that grenade in my lap and drive off. So yeah, like as a black man, like when you go out, like everything has to be in order. Everything has to make sense. You have to have answers for everything. You have to do everything right. And like for him, it's just like whatever. Like yeah, you made me upset, so I'm coming at you with everything, and it doesn't matter how wrong I am. I know I'll be okay.
And he put some serious time into this. He followed you. He's pushing you, using racial slurs. Follows you into the bank. So he's, on top of the plates. He's like publicly assaulting people in a place of business.
Right.
I mean that's.
But he had to go.
He had to go. Can you imagine? You would have been in jail immediately. What are the odds? Well, now I have to go.
Right.
Okay. Well, no, you have to go to jail. Wow. That's fascinating. That story is powerful, and it really does encapsulate. Like I think about your point of view, but yeah, I think about his too, of this rage, obviously rage at a black person. Meanwhile, he's got stolen plates.
Right.
He really did call 911. I thought he just maybe said that, but he really did call. He needed help. He needed, like, what did he need help with?
It's not that he needed me to be in trouble. Like that's like that's all it was.
Yeah. Yeah. Good on that bank teller for at least.
Yeah.
Seems like the only person in the story that did the right thing.
Yeah, so she processed everything as she should have processed. She took in all the information and made a decision based on like facts, and she got lots of cupcakes after that.
I wonder what would have happened if you pushed him back.
So that's another thing. Like, I don't, at that point, I don't know they called the cops, right?
Mm-hmm.
So the cops are on the way. We know the notion that the cops have in their head already,
Mm-hmm.
and they arrive and we're fighting.
Right.
That doesn't end well for me.
Right.
So, yeah, like it's a no good, no win situation where you just take the lump and you go home. So that's it. Tuesday was like Blackout Tuesday, and I don't think a lot of people knew what to do with it. So if there is another Blackout Tuesday, or if you put the black square and you didn't do anything else than that, like I'd say reach out to some of your Black friends or associates, or another person of color, and ask them if they've had an experience with law enforcement, where they think they were treated unfairly, or they might have experienced police brutality or racial profiling or something like that, and just listen to their story and try to put yourself in their shoes and see how you'd react, and to see if you could always be ready to make the right decisions to get home to your family. Like, being in the military, like you might have to make those decisions, but yeah, like when I leave my house every day, I feel like I have to be in the right mindset to make sure I get home to my family.
Yeah.
I don't know when I'm going to run into another racist person, and the way I see it, my skin color is an escalation. So any confrontation is going to be a confrontation, and my skin color automatically escalates that confrontation. So I have to be ready to de-escalate, or not let it get to a level where it jeopardizes me coming back home. Like I told you, my wife is white. Her mother is out of town now. I was at her mother's house doing some work over the weekend, and like I was just hoping none of the neighbors called the cops on me. Like that was in the back of my head while I was there. My wife experienced with it how I interact with police officers. One time we were driving back from Arkansas. I was sleeping. We were in my car, and I woke up and we were being pulled over. And before the cop got to her window, I had the registration and proof of insurance on the dashboard from a dead sleep, from sleeping till he reached the window. It was, and she kind of took it in. I think the cop kind of took it in, and like I went from sleep to business. Like,
yeah,
like
survival.
I wasn't driving, so if I was driving, my hands would be on the steering wheel, the window would be already down. So like I just had my hands on my knees, no sudden movements. Like with the Tesla Model S, and again, it's something that's always in my mind. Like they have a pocket right under the driver's seat, and that's where we keep the insurance information. So like when I told my wife I'm keeping it there, she's like, well, like, do you think it's a good idea to have it like under the seat? I was like, it'll be like, I know where it is, I can get it, and it'll be out before he gets to the window. So like, yes, that's the best place for it. That's the quickest place that I can get it from. So yeah. Like, that's something that we prepare for.
I don't even know where mine is. And I bet if my wife was there, she would say, I think she would guess where it might be, but we don't think about where, the cop will wait while the white people dig through their car to find their
my
paperwork.
16-year-old, that was a part of his driving lessons when I was teaching him to drive, and the same with my 16-year-old daughter. Like, you know where that is, and be ready to have that available. And when I was younger, like I was like 20 something, and I was driving, I had a radar detector, so I knew the cops were ahead, so I slowed down. And like this one it's similar to like the situation that Sandra Bland was in. So I slowed down when I saw the cops. So before they saw me, like I was going well below the speed limit, and when I passed them, like I just saw their heads whip around. Just like, whatever. And I get down the road like a few miles, and they like finally like pull up behind me, and they come up quick on me. So I move over, because that's what you do when cops pull behind you. So they pulled me over. They questioned me for like 10 minutes, got my driver's license and registration, came back, questioned me for like 10 more minutes. And they're asking me the same questions like over and over again. So I'm on the side of the road for like 20, 25 minutes answering their questions. And I finally got to like a frustration point. And my frustration point was like, you know, where are you going? I'm like, my girlfriend's house. Like, where does she live? Like St. Petersburg. Like, this is the third time I'm telling you. Where'd you say she lives? Like, do you want her address? Like, that's the level of escalation that I made it to after 20 minutes of questioning. And he's finally like, no, that's fine. Just make sure you indicate when you're switching lanes. So like, you chased me down. Like I didn't do that until you came up behind me. Like that's when I changed lanes without indicating.
Oh, why did it come up behind you in the first place?
Yeah, because I was a young black man driving like
that.
Like, yeah.
I think the most disappointing thing on watching the Tesla community, at least for me, was so we have a lot of data nerds in the crew, people who love data. Yeah. And some of them were just, it seemed like they were on a quest to find, like if they could just find the right statistic, they could show that racism didn't exist. Like, well, if you look at this specific crime, it's actually, you know, this many white people get killed. And but none of that's useful. Like none of that means racism doesn't exist. No, it's just, you're just playing with numbers.
The data points to racism existing. Like,
yes,
at least, you know, for the state of Missouri, they have to keep those records. And when you look at the records, like, yeah, like black people are pulled over more often. And like, you can say, all right, well, black people speed more. Like, I don't know that black people, but you can make that case. Like, I'm a business analyst. So like, this is kind of what I do in my day job. And then they look at vehicle searches, right? So white cars are searched at like 20% of the time, and black vehicles are searched like 30%. And these aren't the exact numbers, but they search white vehicles less frequently than they search black vehicles. Like, all right, like that could be problematic. And then they look at when they have a successful find, or when they find contraband, and they find contraband in white cars and cars with white drivers more often than they find contraband in cars with black drivers. So from a data perspective, if finding contraband is the problem, the data says that you should be looking in cars with white drivers more often, because you're finding it there more frequently.
Right.
So yeah, like that's something that you can't dispute. Like, you're looking here more often, but you're finding it there less. Why are you looking there more often?
Yeah.
So yeah, the data, they're looking at the data, they probably see that, and then they don't say anything.
My biggest worry is being silent on a topic. So even though this is just about EVs and dogs and frunks and things, I felt compelled to say something. And my hope is to see other people in the community do that. Yeah. Some have.
There are a lot of people of color that own Teslas, and it's a nice car. It's an expensive car, and there's certain people that will think we shouldn't be driving this car. So yeah, it's something that a segment of the Tesla community has to deal with. So yeah, my challenge is to reach out to a person of color that and ask them what their experience has been. And if you know several people of color and you find that all of them have had negative experience with law enforcement, then that's something for you to like ponder on. Something
at a minimum, I would hope people would be able to pause and think about what's going on right now.
Yes.
Above and beyond their own preconceptions, or answers that are easy. I saw that a lot too, that, oh yeah, that death was sad, but why are these people destroying things? And then they just want to focus on that. And then that's it, right? That's the end of the discussion. And if we didn't have somebody breaking a window at Target, then we wouldn't really have a problem. That's kind of the message I get.
Yeah.
But it's not about that, and none of it's about that.
Right. And that's the part that's so frustrating probably for people of colors, and I'll speak for myself. So that's something that I find frustrating. So you hear about the things that I've done in preparation and the things that I've experienced. So when something like this happens, like I can relate to it. Like the Marbury case in Georgia, I don't know if you saw, like there was a guy on the witness stand that testified that the shooter stood over him and called him an effing N after he shot him. And that's what like the guy called me at the bank. Like it's the same exact wording. Like, so I can relate to it. So it means more to me. So yeah, like they looted a Target, they lit the Target on fire, but someone died, and I can directly relate to that death. So yeah, that is, it's a matter of perspective for me. So I relate to the one that lost their life, and for others they relate to Target. Like Target is something that they see every day. Like, so yeah, a matter of another way to look at it is from opportunities being taken away from someone. So if everybody, like they say, black and white people use marijuana at the same rates, right? Now, if 33% of the time you're getting pulled over, you have a much higher likelihood of being caught with marijuana in your car, even though you might be, have it the same likelihood as someone that's white, and that could ruin your life. Like that's it for you. So like, yeah, those small decisions could have huge impacts on someone's life. So from a kid, you have to be making the right decisions. Like you can't, like we can't smart mouth the cops when we're teenagers. So because it puts you in the criminal justice system, and your life isn't the same after that. Like you can't, you might not be able to get in the military, you won't be able to get the same job. So yeah, it's not just the fact that someone died. Yeah, the pulling someone over could have a profound impact on their life. And then people say, well, you shouldn't have drugs in the car. Like, yes, I understand that, but yeah, like we're not the only ones that have drugs in our car, but we're the ones that overwhelmingly, and it's a huge impact on your life. We can just say like the privilege of receiving the benefit of the doubt. Like white kids can just be kids. Like kids will be kids. But yeah, like with black kids, like you're held to a different standard. Like that mistake is amplified, and it could follow you for the rest of your life. So yeah, it's you're given the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, like an unfair application of the law, right? That
exactly.
A lot of things can slide. People can. It's okay, right?
And that's supposed to be a thing, right? Like equal application. Like that's supposed.
I assume most of my demographic on Twitter is white males. If I think that's basically most of the people who are there, statistically at least. I've tried to keep FrunkPuppy pretty secular in many ways, so I try to keep it to all EVs. I try to, if you look at our FrunkPuppy board, it's actually pretty diverse. There's pretty worldwide presence there.
You have cat people on the board too, right?
I know, like talk about acceptance, right? I hate it. If there was FrunkPuppy police, I'd pull over the cat people more often. I admit it. I admit my bias. I would simply check their cars for catnip. But I think there's a minimal amount of black people in the Tesla community. So I think this topic, it becomes very difficult to discuss because a lot of people they haven't thought about this, and they aren't able to take a perspective. So I hope our conversation today gives people a little more perspective that there's real human beings here, and there's stories. Everybody has a story.
Right.
Is there anything that you think would be useful to say specifically to that community, to the EV community?
To the EV community in general, like not like that's what's kind of hard about this situation, because where it's a community that's focused on statistics, and like we look at numbers when it comes to efficiency and energy consumption and environmental impact, and all of that is quantifiable, right? So that's what it boils down to. Like for everything else, it comes down to the data. And there have been a few rifts in the EV community over the past few weeks, and it seems like some people are shying away from numbers and data, and like the data is saying this, like the data is so. That's all I'd ask for. Like, like look at the data. Look at what the data says. Approach it how you approach everything else. You approach it thoughtfully. You consider all your options, and you can determine what's best for the long run. Like we don't necessarily get an EV because it's best for right now. Like we look at the big picture. Like even with when you purchase a car and you put full self-driving on it, like you don't get that benefit now. You get that benefit in the future. So yeah, like I think it's unusual for me because it seems like a step back from how the community normally contemplates things.
I think that's well put. I think that's what I was trying to say before, is that's what's bothered me. That's what's bothered me, like kind of an inappropriate use of statistics, or kind of cherry picking data. And it's almost like being on the other side of the climate change argument.
Exactly.
Right? Well, there's this one study, but it's like garbage, and it doesn't really mean anything. But you're missing it doesn't mean climate change isn't happening, right? And I feel like some of the community went that direction with this.
And even with like with how the things that Elon said a few weeks ago, like it was the same thing. Like I'm looking at data. I'm looking at what the data says. Like I don't know that we flattened the curve yet. Like yeah, you had success in Shanghai, or with the plant in China, but it seemed like we just strayed away from what data was saying, and a lot of people are just like, follow Elon. So yeah, there's been a few situations where I think we've kind of strayed away from data based on feelings. And
yeah, I have been disappointed in him with the whole COVID situation. I did try to speak up on that topic. But I think what bugs me is that when his factory was going to be shut down longer, he was very outspoken about that. He had his big freedom tweets and like, we got to open the factory, right? But then through through these protests, he just wrote that it was messed up, basically, like, yeah, those people should be charged and I'm going to leave. And then he left Twitter. He just took a break. I'm like, well, where's the out? Like, are you not? And I mean, and there was that whole uproar over Tesla and race not too long ago about some things at their factories. And I don't know if you read about that stuff, but so you think he might want to get out in front of that and be a little bit more of an advocate. But
when he left, I was like, what happened to freedom?
Right. That's what I was thinking.
You were just talking about freedom a couple weeks ago.
There's like people at state houses with guns, and we're like up in arms because we don't want to wear a mask for 5 minutes.
Right.
But yeah, and then he kind of disappeared with this other issue, and I don't, and I think, but I think you make a good point, because that resonates throughout the community, right? Like what's important and what's not important. Well, right. Good science on COVID, not very important. Keeping everything open, that's important. Racism, yeah, that was messed up.
Yeah,
but
like
I'll see you later.
Yeah, I want to be. I'd rather be comfortable. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a little disappointing. He's not going to be a leader on all things, and certainly not on some of these topics, I don't think. But it's disappointing. I think when you have millions of followers, you got to really think about that. you know, whether he likes it or not, what he says is going to hold some weight. And he could have said some things about COVID, and he could have said some things about race. I think that would have been really helpful for people, and he chose not to do that. Just in general, kind of the biggest accounts or the biggest YouTubers in the Tesla community, I didn't see anything on this topic, really. Maybe I missed it, but I saw people taking breaks.
Marquez just did something, and I mean, he's not Tesla specific, but he's a pretty big voice, and you know, he can get information out about Tesla, and he's also Black, so you know, it impacts him, and he did it in probably the least controversial way, like, and he still got like 5,000 thumbs down on it.
Way to go, people.
And then another thing I thought, like you guys are complaining about being at home for 6 weeks and you want to go to Mars? Like, you won't be able to, like, I can't go outside, and you want to go to Mars? Like, you won't ever be able to go outside.
Yeah. There won't even be target windows to break at Mars.
No, you're just
gonna have those problems.
You're inside, period. And then you're on a spaceship. The discussions about that, like, there have been some pretty profound discussions if people are willing to listen to them. Like, you hear some passionate voices that are like, yeah, like, COVID's a threat, yes, but so is police brutality. Like, you know, like, how do I rate which one is more of a threat to me? So yeah, there's been some very profound statements. There's a lot of good information out there, and so yeah, that's my hope, is that people will be open to listening to some new perspectives and try and put yourself in their shoes in that situation they describe, and think about how you live your life if that was something that was always in the back of your mind.
Or I've had other white fans of my account reach out and ask me again, like, what was the name of that book? And they went out and got it, and they got audiobooks and stuff. So if just a couple people do something, then I think that's at least helpful. But
yeah, that's huge. That's huge.
Yeah. You figure if you have white privilege, you can at least use it somehow.
Yeah, that's how we're gonna get to the other side of this, is white people are gonna have to spend their privilege. It was a bad video, like it was bad. But to me, like, they're all bad. Like, I don't understand what it was about this video where universally condemned, like police unions are condemning it. Rush Limbaugh condemned it. Like, it's universal. Like, there is no acceptance for this. But yeah, so yeah, I don't understand what was different about this situation, why the response was so visceral. I'm happy that everyone's kind of on board, though.
Yeah.
Like, even with that, so like, there was all the outrage, and then you still saw like the systematic things going on in the background, like where the country was outraged, and like the DA's office is still trying to, like, all right, like, we're gonna slowball this, and like, oh, well, we have evidence that might show that it wasn't, and yeah, then that's when they started to the protest really heated up, and like, put pressure on the system. So like, even like, everyone was outraged, like, yo, this is messed up, and yeah, but the legal system is still doing what they're doing to like, the cops haven't been arrested yet, and they're slow balling everything. So yeah, like, the more rage and outrage that came out about it, the more that it forced, like, public sentiment forced them to do what they were supposed to do. Like, that's it. Like, that's all that happened. So yeah, even though it was wrong, like, the justice system, I definitely do feel like things are different now than they were 3 weeks ago, 2-3 weeks ago. We'll see where we go from here.
You gotta rally around hope, in some ways. You know,
Yeah.
I hope that something positive comes out of this, and at least the topic is definitely out there and it's on everybody's mind. And not to be political, but we are heading into an election year, so you know, hopefully not just, you know, everybody thinks about the big elections, but at every level, I think is really important. People don't show up and vote.
We had our local elections 2 days ago, and it was different. Like, they squirted you with hand sanitizer when you walked in. They gave you a pen that you could use. They have iPads that we sign our names with. So one side was like the black touchscreen devices, and the other side was a pen, so you could sign and you kept the pen. So everybody was masked.
Why would they do that? COVID is over. Didn't they know?
No.
It's done now.
It's crazy. Like, it depends. Like, you want to make sure you get your people out to vote. So you're going to make sure your people are so you have to do stuff at least to make those be, you know, it might not be to make everybody comfortable, but you know, you want to make those people comfortable to vote.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else on the topic you wanted to discuss?
No, I think I think I've discussed everything that.
I really appreciated you doing this. I think it's an important message. I can't thank you enough, and thanks for your kindness and understanding on the topic too. I think a lot of us fumble with what to say, and but I think this is a good start, and this is the kind of thing I'd like to see more of on the Twitter community, is people just kind of thinking about these things and talking to people who are different than them and getting different perspectives, because I think that's a bit lost right now.
So yeah, again, if you know any people of color, reach out to them, ask them for their stories, and just listen and put yourself in their shoes and see how you react in that situation, and see if that changes your perception a little bit.
All right, Trevor. Thanks again.
All right. Thanks for having me.
All right.